Hey everybody, this is Anthony from the Periodic Table of History. I'm glad you made it. What we're going to do is jump into our time machine of the Periodic Table of History and go back to the time of Menahem and then look at our maps to find out where he was, and that would give us the context of the story, King Menahem. We find him in 2 Kings. He's the 17th king of Israel. He reigned from 752 to 742 BC. So a decent little reign, but we're inching closer to that 722 BC time when Israel gets dispersed all over Assyria. So we're going to jump into 2 Kings 15, verse 14. That's where his name appears. For Menahem, the son of Gadi, went up from Tirzah and came to Samaria and smote Shallum the son of Jabesh in Samaria and slew him and reigned in his stead. So note that we have the cities of Tirzah and Samaria right there. We want to find out where those are, and we have been looking at them. So some of you that have been here know where those are. So Menahem, he thought he was doing the world a service. He could claim he was correcting the previous assassination. It was a successful assassination by assassinating the opposition, of course. You know, that's get rid of somebody that doesn't agree with you if their politics is different, and then we see these conspiracies. So in verse 15, and the rest of the acts of Shallum and his conspiracy, which he made, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel. So, good old Shallum. Remember, he reigned for 1 month. So he had an ill-fated attempt, but hopefully that was worth it in his estimation. 1 month of being king. It is dangerous to be a king, let me tell you. We don't really know what the conspiracy was all about, but we don't really need to know all those details. We can see corruption in the government even today when we look all over the world. There's always hot spots to find out that people are not using the tools of justice correctly. And so that's probably something that was going along, between Tirzah and between Samaria. Everyone's getting the news and has their own opinion, but some people are closer to the king and they have the ability to change the outcome of the future, which is what happened with Shallum. So then Menahem smote Tifsa and all that were therein, and the coast thereof from Tirzah, because they opened not to him. Therefore he smote it, and all the women therein that were with child. I'm not even going to read the last part of that sentence. You can read it for your own eyeballs. It hurts my eyeballs to even read that. But because Tirzah, the city of Tirzah, is mentioned there, I start thinking Menahem must have been here in Israel. And that happens to not be the case. I mean, Israel is expanding out into Assyria. And so that's the story we're going to get when we look at our maps. So let's place Menahem in his context. Let's look at our maps right now. There's our world map, and we can see our epicenter, which of course it's going to be there, Israel. I have Tirzah and Samaria, those two cities on there. I also put Nineveh on here because it's of note for us. But I want to point out how big Israel is getting, and that they are bumped right up against Assyria. Assyria is here in pink. I'll click around it. And what we have is Israel is expanding to the north over what we call today Lebanon, and now they're touching up in this one area. We learned in that last video that was Hama. And so now we have a border city touching the border areas of Nineveh, and Nineveh is trying to expand all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. So we have Israel expanding into the same area that Nineveh is expanding into. When you start getting that, then this starts making a lot more sense. And we have in Scripture Tifsa mentioned. Now we don't know absolutely where it is, but we do know that it was one of the gatekeeping cities of the Euphrates River. And it was one of the trade route gatekeepers for all the trade that was going across the east from India and those areas, Persia, coming across the Fertile Crescent, and then getting picked up where, say, like Tarsus is, and then Crete, the Phoenicians, who have these huge sea networks that go all over, really all over the world. And so everybody wants to get their goods into this area so they can make the maximum profits. And you can see Israel is going north to get to this area. Assyria is going west to get to this area. And then I would think that you would want to cross at, say, right here, where I'll turn this off for a second. Right here is where I would think would be a good crossing point. You could move you could move your troops out here. They could have water the whole time, and then you could cross over onto the other side. But as far as archaeology goes, there are two high guesses, and one of them is this Dibsi Farag, and one is around Carchemish, where Tifsa may have been. Carchemish is a little bit farther out there, but yeah, since we don't really know, we just think of it as you would go up to the river, there'd be a town there, have probably lots of boats, ferries for getting goods back and forth across. Maybe they're trying to build bridges, stuff like that. And if we're getting the scope of this, we can even look at the distances. That is always fun to do. From Samaria, if we went all the way up to this region, we're getting about 300 miles. If we went to Carchemish, that's, 340 miles maybe? 330, 340? So that gives us the scale of what's going on. But let's say since you had just expanded all the way out to Hama, now you can station your troops further north from Hama, and now it's only maybe a 85-mile journey, maybe a 90-mile journey to get over to this region and try to cross the Euphrates. Well, what Menahem did to Assyria there is just, I don't even like to talk about it, but now we see why there's a really big conflict with Assyria and Israel. You start messing with people's territory or people's money, and people will get really, really angry. That's a thing that happens. So keep all those places in mind. Nineveh, Hamath, Samaria, Tirzah. You can see these are really close together. When we look at the distances here, from Samaria to Tirzah, well, that's about 10 miles. So you can see this gives us some perspective on this. But we just keep these into the back of our mind, and that allows us to fully accept the conditions that we're going along in this time period. Now, another special note that's really fun is this is the time period just after Jonah preached to the Assyrians, and the Assyrians repented at Nineveh. Yeah, this is right after about 760 BC. In the 760s, that's probably the time when Jonah did that. And so you see an effect happening in Assyria with the two kings, the Ashur-dan III, and he was in the 760s and the 750s. Then we have Ashur-narari V, that's in the 750s down into the 740s. And that's the same era now as Menahem, who's reigning 752 to 742 BC. So we can see that, and then Tiglath-Pileser III coming up here. But an obscure official just named Pileser that got the news of Samaria's Menahem slaughter, and he didn't have full power. He was a government official at the time, but not the full king. And that was when Menahem came to power. Tiglath-Pileser III is who I'm talking about. And so I think about politics nowadays, that you have somebody in charge that either does action or doesn't, and then somebody under that person who says, why don't you do something? Why don't you do something? If I were king, I would do something. But he's not the king, right? But boom, then things change when Tiglath-Pileser III comes up. And we're going to see that. So in the 9 and 30th year of Azariah, king of Judah, began Menahem the son of Gadi to reign over Israel, and reigned 10 years in Samaria, that city that we just looked at. And we can see the full scale of the periodic table of history here. King Menahem, his reign is right here. We go in between 1000 BC and 1 AD, and I'm going to point right to him with my arrow. See, he's getting down to the end of Israel when we zoom in, and we find out that we just have Pekahiah, Hoshea just coming up. Well, Menahem, and he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. He departed not all his days from the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. So we're back to those two golden calves. Two golden calves. Remember, Aaron made a golden calf, said, "This is the God that brought you out of Egypt." And then Jeroboam said, "Hey, here's these gods that brought you out of Egypt." Made those two golden calves. So that is just horrifying to think about that. So Menahem bowed down before these golden calves. So, and Pul, now that's Pileser, and Pul, the king of Assyria, came against the land, and Menahem gave Pul 1,000 talents of silver, that his hand might be with him to confirm the kingdom in his hand. And Menahem exacted the money of Israel, even of all the mighty men of wealth, of each man 50 shekels of silver, to give to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria turned back and stayed not there in the land. See, so there's a new king in town, and that is Tiglath-Pileser. And he does not want to put up with Israel smashing the Assyrian cities. So it's not just dead cows that are covered with gold that Menahem gets to bow down to. He gets to bow down to the other king now. He's in slavery, and he gets to be a slave. I think that is theologically interesting. So this general governor Pul of Assyria, about 745 BC, becomes the king of Assyria. He gets the add-on name Tiglath-Pileser, and then we give him 3 so we can distinguish him from 2 and number 1. So he conquers the land of Arpad, which is probably Arphaxad of Shem. I think that he's the one that makes it so we don't know Arphaxad anymore. But we would know it as Chaldean later, because Jesus spoke in Chaldee. King Menahem of Israel gets to meet the new king and pay tribute to him. That 1 talent of silver, that's about 75 pounds in the Babylonian system, about 30 kilograms. And then 50 shekels of silver, that's about 1¼ pound or 0.6 kilograms. So I was kind of thinking that this King Menahem has the gift of administration. He can tell all the soldiers they have to fight for him, and then he tells them to give the silver so that he can get Tiglath-Pileser III to stop attacking them. So that is good thinking. You get your soldiers to pay instead of you paying. That's the gift of administration, which I'm not real great at that, but this guy King Menahem, he does have that gift. And the rest of the acts of Menahem and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? And Menahem slept with his fathers, and Pekahiah his son reigned in his stead. So Menahem really gets to be remembered for one battle. He tried to push out, and just thinking from our geography that he pushed out a little bit to the north and the east and then hit Assyria harder than Assyria wanted to be hit. And now Menahem is at the end of his reign, Tiglath-Pileser at the beginning of his reign. Tiglath-Pileser still has a longer reign to harass Israel into the next couple decades. So we will see that, and that's going to be terrible for Israel. So hopefully that was insightful for you. I've been learning all this about Israeli kings, though I've studied them in the past and heard people talk about them before. Just putting them in the geography, putting them in time makes me a lot more aware of what was going on politically, geopolitically, and gives me a greater understanding of the Bible. Hopefully that's the case for you also. So you can write your comments down there in the comment section. Well, as always, have a great week, and I hope to see you in the next video.